I'm Peter Marks, theater critic for The Washington Post.
And I'm Elizabeth Vincentelli, and I write for The New York Times. Welcome to another edition of Marks and Vincentelli, where we talk about things, many things, on-stage things, off-stage things.
Yeah, on stage and off. That was the name of the column that I and others wrote for the Times for many years. Thank you for that plug. It was a great meeting place for the theater world, Elizabeth.
Oh my God, on stage and off. I always who is not a fan of backstage drama? That is
right.
All of us.
Indeed, indeed.
But how have you been doing, Peter? It's so busy right now.
It is very busy. I'm on overdrive at the moment. Hyperdrive, I guess maybe is the better way to put it. And I'm seeing though a lot of good things. I mean, it's a very strong season as far as I can tell. Not everything is Wuthering Heights. I was not a fan of, but that said, there's been the Top Dogs, Underdogs, The Piano Lesson. I've had Leopoldstadt, just the Broadway stuff. I'm seeing Kimberly Akimbo next week. It's been a very powerful beginning as far as I'm concerned.
We're going to have to spend some time in another episode talking about Leopoldstadt because I was bored out of my mind.
Okay,
I was so bored by that show. We're going to have to come back to it, but not today. Today is not the day for that. Because today, absolutely not the day for that. Because today we have such a great guest. It's someone we both admire. She's won all kinds of awards. She's, really, who has not been to a Broadway show and not seen today's guest?
Do you believe in love after love?
Okay. Yes. Our first hint is that today's guest is Cher. But no, it's not Cher. Thanks for Peter's mewling. You might have sussed that our guest is Stephanie J. Block. We are both very big fans of Stephanie's. She did get her Tony finally for a performance as Cher in The Cher Show. That opened in late 2018, so she got it in 2019. Although two of my favorite I absolutely adore her, but two of my favorite performances by her were in shows that fewer people saw. One was the musical The Pirate Queen, which was a bit of a flop, let's face it. And another was actually not in a musical at all, but it was in Lynn Nottage's By the Way, Meet Vera Stark, in which anybody who saw that production will know that Stephanie was so incredibly funny in that show. And that's when I realized this woman is like a comedic genius. Anyway, huge fan.
Yeah, so the other things we should point out, it's true, her resume is very deep. She played Liza Minnelli in The Boy from Oz with Hugh Jackman. She was in Falsettos on Broadway, The Mystery of Edward Drood's revival. She's originated roles and stepped into them. I first saw her at the Kennedy Center in 2005 as Elphaba in Wicked on the Road. And here's what I wrote about her at the time, I'm proud to say. Block is simply stunning, her voice rising thrillingly to the challenges of The Wizard and I, and even more potently in the Act One finale, Defying Gravity, which is a requirement of that role. You better be able to knock that out of the park. Floating above the stage and bathed in Kenneth Posner's multicolored shafts of light, Block is a Powerpuff Girl of the night Oz sky. Oy. Okay, yeah, that hasn't...
I love the vintage reference there.
Yeah, really, Powerpuff, yeah, I know. It's a different time. It was a different time.
So Stephanie is currently playing the baker's wife in the hit revival. Oh, and it is a monster hit, that thing. The hit revival of Into the Woods. So one of the things I want to start with is the show, the show's official Twitter feed recently tweeted out. It matched. You can check your astrological sign, and it matches you with a song from the show. I don't know if you saw that, but I was cruelly disappointed to see that my sign gets Agony, and not, which actually I would love, but I'm getting the reprise, which I'm sorry, but no. When clearly I needed to have
the reprise of Agony.
Yeah. which is, it's fine. But I wanted Hello Little Girl, except I'm not the right sign. So what is your sign and what is the song that you were...
I am a Virgo, and I was assigned Maybe They're Really Magic. And I think it's very right because at the end, right, it's Justify the Beans, which apparently has gotten a lot of notice. And because I belt it, there's all this rigmarole because of my vocal quality. Blah, 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 blah.
You
but yes,
belt
as a
it?
Virgo,
What?
you bet the hell I justify those beans as a Virgo. Yes, that's correct.
And Peter, please, you have to tell us, what is your sign and which song are you?
Well, I'm a Taurus, right?
Okay.
So I feel like the match should be to a character, not a song. And of course, as Taurus the bull, it's got to be Milky White.
Oh,
it's Milky White. So it doesn't have a song.
You are the prologue.
But my song is the intro, is the prologue. I don't know what the hell that means. The prologue, of Into the Woods, Into the Woods, isn't it?
Don't you feel as a Taurus, though, you would be Granny and the giant and the tree? It's like they're feisty, they're forward, they make big, decisions and reverberations as a Taurus, don't you think?
I feel the transcript of this conversation is going to be in the next issue of the Sondheim Quarterly, because I feel that...
Sometimes I do feel, Stephanie, sometimes I do feel, where trees are concerned, I do feel as old as the redwoods. So that does feel somehow appropriate.
Applicable, yeah.
So thank you for that. I appreciate the reminder.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just curious. I was looking at your body of work. And had you done Sondheim before? I don't think so.
Never.
That's the first one.
This is my very first piece. Yeah. And I'm talking through high school arts career and community theater, regional theater.
Really?
I have never done Sondheim. Nor have I ever even officially met him. It's been a whole bunch of near misses, really through either Williams College or James Lapine. And it seems as though all arrows would point to us having, environments where we could meet, whether it was James Lapine had a bar mitzvah when he was, 60 some years old. And I sat at the table and the name tags on the table, there was Mr. Stephen Sondheim. And I thought, God, this is going to be the moment where I get to meet him. And no, I've been to birthday parties in people's apartments where they're like, Stephen's on his way. Oh, great. I'll meet Steve tonight. And certainly I'll look at my watch and say, I've got to get to the theater. I'll go down in the elevator. The doors were open. He'll get in the elevator. I'll leave the elevator. So there have been so many near misses of actually spending time with the genius. And I've never even met him. It's heartbreaking, actually, to think.
I'm really surprised that you could have managed to have an entire very rich career without being in one of these shows, because I feel like at this point, almost everybody has. Not to cast a shot, I'm not saying that in a bad way, but
it doesn't cast
it's remarkable almost.
Of course, there have been so many different revivals. And I mean, truly, you look at anybody's season, any reputable theater throughout the country, their season is going to have some sprinkled Sondheim in there. Same thing with Law and Order. Never done Law and Order.
What?
Do you know what I mean? I'm an outlier, y'all. I'm a real outlier.
Oh, God. No, okay. Okay. That is like you're like a unicorn. You're like the unicorn
I'm
of
a
Broadway.
mythical creature. Yes.
Well, Dick Wolf hopefully is watching or listening somewhere out there, because Stephanie J. Block should be absolutely should be a murderer on Law and Order.
A murderer, someone who works at the morgue. I mean, there are so many possibilities for me. But
okay, I really see psychopath in your like a subway, like psychopath, like.
Not before the election. Let's keep all subway psychopaths out until the election, right?
Yes.
We are a safe city, everybody.
Thank you, indeed. So speaking of playing, Stephanie, I'm just curious, Sebastian Arcelus, your husband, it was until I guess the last week or so, the baker to you, the baker's wife. Was that the first time you two have sung together on a stage?
No. Well, we met during Wicked, right? He actually came into the company, not performing just yet, but Oh, maybe he did make his debut at the Kennedy Center in 2005, December of 2005. And then he and I have done...
I saw that production.
Yeah. It's a lifetime ago now, but the Kennedy Center, the Opera House, still touts it as one of the major successes, that it was completely sold out from the first performance until the end performance. And the Opera House is not a venue that's easily sold out. So we feel really proud about that. And then he and I have done several concerts. We actually did a beautiful concert with Jason Robert Brown at the Baton of Parade. And he played Leo, and I was his wife there. But it had been almost 15 years since we had done a book show together. So it was Wicked, and then fast forward to now. Forgive me. I've also played his wife on Madam's Secretary. They were going to make me audition for that. And I said, if you make me audition and I don't get this, it's not going to bode well for anybody. And I'll be irrationally angry at my husband, even though it's not his fault. So either offer me the friggin' role or get somebody else.
Oh, my God. Oh, that is, wow, snap. I mean, that would have been...
Can you imagine if I didn't get it?
So it saved your marriage and your career, your television career.
That's exactly right. You're exactly right.
That's fantastic. So do you leave the relationship off stage? I mean, after all that time, you met, obviously, at a very different point in your lives 20 years ago or so, maybe, in Wicked. Do you leave? Does that come and go? Can you go home and not be the baker and the baker's wife immediately?
Oh,
I mean,
completely.
Yes. What changes?
Yes.
What's the change? Nothing. Is it just that you're both pros?
Well, I'd like to consider us both pros, but yes, a lot changes. First of all, the idea, the just understanding of an unspoken, this relationship of being husband and wife, and knowing the way each other breathes, and feeding off each other in a way that you can't quite describe. It's not quite tangible, right? That quote unquote chemistry that everybody talks about. Of course it exists because we know each other inside and out. We're each other's best friends and confidants and partners. But the baker and the baker's wife were so different. In fact, most of our notes were, please stop being so touchy. Please stop being so loving. Please stop being so sentimental.
Interesting.
And, because the relationship, the baker and the baker's wife, it's a little more contentious. There's just a pull, between them because of having this difficulty of having a child, and the baker being a little inept and the baker's wife being much more forward and aggressive and makes choices. And so that was a lot of our notes. It's just, guys, you are not the baker and the baker's wife. Please don't be so loving. We need to stick to the story here and service these characters. But on the day-to-day, the day-to-day, whether we're holding each other's hand or we look at each other for that split second before the curtain goes up, or me knowing what the course of his day was and what he might be carrying, whether that's stress or disappointment or whatever, onto the stage, there is a delicacy and a kindness, or however you approach telling the story, knowing what their day held outside of the four walls of the St. James. I think there's a benefit there, Brian Darcy James, there's no one better than Brian Darcy James, but there really is an unspoken understanding between a husband and wife playing two roles together.
What had he done Sondheim before? Was that like a first for him as well, or was
he went to Williams College, and they honored Sondheim in many ways. William Finn and Sondheim went to Williams. And so I think his senior project was actually Into the Woods, where he played the baker, so however many years ago. But no, he didn't make a large career out of Sondheim's canon either. And we would look at each other, honestly, and say, how can musical theater be our meat and potatoes, and we don't have, Sondheim under our belt? And I will also say this, we were living 3,000 miles away when Stephen passed, but the ache that we felt, almost something we couldn't quite describe, saying, why is this affecting us so deeply? Because we never really met the man intimately or had a familial connection in any way. And Seb just looked at me and he said, because he existed, we know ourselves better. That's why we're hurting. And I said, you're exactly right. And it was kind of his passing that again, we looked at each other and said, somehow we've got to get back to the East Coast and we need to look at what that looks like for us as a family. And then this opportunity came and there was no way to say no. So it did feel a little like divine intervention, a little bit of a magic wand that came in and said, this is the way you're coming back to the East Coast, playing the baker and the baker's wife. It was a bit unheard of, to be honest.
That's lovely.
So how do you approach a role? How do you approach a role that in a show that has it's become one of his most popular shows? It's done all the time. It's done in schools, in colleges. It tours. It's revived. It's done big. It's done small. It's very adaptable in many ways.
Yes.
So what is it like to come into a show that a lot of people have expectations about because they know it probably more than his other shows? For a lot of like younger folks right now, they grew up with it. They did it in school, they've listened to it. So like what kind of expectations that it places on a performer to come in and like, oh my God, like do you even think about it? Or is it just like, no, I'm going to tackle it like it's any other role?
Elizabeth, I don't think about it anymore. If you would have talked to me maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I might have. But my career has been such where that expectation seems to always be there. Whether I'm my Broadway debut playing Liza, the expectation of that, playing Cher, the expectation of that, stepping into Elphaba once Adina won the Tony, stepping into Anything Goes when Sutton won the Tony. I have never kind of just been a mild, soft landing into any musical. There's always been a real high bar. And I think the only thing that keeps me centered in that is that I will never replicate, because these stars in their own right have paved a way and created a moment or a memory for anybody who has seen or heard their performances. And I will never, quote unquote, win if I try to just duplicate. So I'm a unique, silly, ridiculous human being. And if given the chance to really show all of those quirks, I feel that I can expand on a role, this being one of them. I fell in love with this role when it was my sweet 16 birthday. And it was my favorite birthday gift that I got, the two-fold Les Mis album and the two-fold Into the Woods album.
Oh,
and I
wow.
can remember the production, the cast photo in the seam of that album. And I fell in love with the baker's wife. I didn't have the life experience that I should to even pretend that I could play this role. But I've been wanting to do this roles, God, for 30-some years. So being given the chance now and the life experience that I've had now and the hardship that I had to have my child, there's a lot of parallels in my life. And that's something that I think any actor starts looking for, right? To kind of anchor their performance. What can I feed off of in my personal life that infuses into this character and what I can offer that's different than anybody else? And The Baker and the Baker's Wife parallel a lot to what Sebastian and I have lived the last decade.
Wow.
I know.
We should talk a little bit more about that, Stephanie. I'm curious, but to go along another thread, you're going to take on later this year the role of Norma Desmond in Sunset Boulevard, another huge part with a history, a fascinating history. And as you mentioned,
expectations again, all expectations.
Indeed, but yes, you are maybe the only human being in living in history to play both Liza and Cher on a Broadway stage in musicals. Did you? I'm just curious. Did you sing Cher for Cher?
Oh yes, I sang Cher for Cher. I guess it was maybe the third incarnation. So I was approached at the end of Falsettos. So forgive me if I get the year wrong. I think it's maybe 2016 about playing Cher. And I, as graciously as I could, said, thank you, no thank you. I don't think I'm the actress for this. One, I feel like I've already done this process by playing Liza, by playing a living, breathing icon. I feel like I checked that off. And there was a bit of post-traumatic stress disorder with what all that was. That's a whole different podcast, but I'll tell you anything you want to know. And then with Cher, with Cher, I just felt there's got to be a better actress who can embody this woman than myself. I just never saw any of my qualities in her. And 3 times after I kept saying thank you, no thank you, Jason Moore took me to dinner and kind of explained what his take on the piece was going to be, and this sort of spiritual understanding with the 3 women coming together. I used to call it Cherapy, not therapy, where the younger Cher would talk to the older one, the older would commiserate with the middle. So I invented Cherapy, and I thought, this is kind of wonderful. I'd love this idea. Well, 2 weeks into that workshop, which again, I think was the 3rd or 4th after the table reading, after a different presentation, after another script read, 2 weeks in, we had to present it for Cher before proceeding and moving on to Out of Town in Chicago. And it probably was one of the scariest moments for me because there was no facade, right? We're in the new 42nd Street rehearsal space with fluorescent lights, no bells and whistles to hide behind.
Jesus.
We had quote unquote costumes, but more or less just wear black and be as sassy and spunky and wonderful as you can be. And she's not 6 feet from me, watching every move I make. Oh God. And she wanted to meet us all before we did the presentation. She asked to come in a half an hour before everybody else was let into the room. And I hid in a dressing room to kind of self-preserve, not out of fear. I mean, of course, there was a level of fear, but I just wanted to preserve what I had created and present it on a really sort of clean slate without meeting her and starting to get into my own head. And then, if given the opportunity, to meet her after. Well, that wasn't going to fly for Cher. So one of our producers came upstairs and said, she really is beckoning for you, and you do not keep Cher waiting. So I'm going to need you to come downstairs and meet her in advance. And she was gracious. She, too, talk about self-preservation. She was wearing these sort of reflective aviator glasses and this big felt fedora meets sombrero, and she had a big puffy jacket on, and she had an entourage of maybe 10 or 12 people around her. But she was lovely. And she said, I know what it's like to be an artist. I know what it's like to be vulnerable. I know what it's like to be scared as shit. I don't know if you have to bleep that out or not. No. So I'm here. I'm here for you, in support of you. She said something to the effect of, that I can't really hide my expressions. I will always give you the truth. Oh my God. And so I made sure that throughout this presentation, I didn't keep clocking in and checking in on what she was thinking. But there were moments where she would grab her companion's hand or her voice teacher's hand, and you would see tears streaming down from her aviator glasses. So I knew we were either doing something terribly wrong or terribly right, but it was evoking truth, like real emotion, And then we didn't get to see her afterwards. She really did kind of pick up and leave. And we were all left with this question of, did we get her approval and can we move forward? And, history tells us we can, and we did. But there were a lot of meetings along the way. And it wasn't really until we were about 2 or 3 weeks into previews on Broadway that she came and she asked to meet me at the Four Seasons on my day off. And I said, I respect you greatly, but I'm exhausted and I'm the mother of a very young child, and I cannot take that day to meet you. Is there any way you can make me meet me in my dressing room on a Tuesday before a show? And she did, and she came, and she kind of barreled right into, let me teach you how to walk, let me refine your speech, all of these sort of technical aspects that she wanted me to kind of meet a little closer. And I said, Cher, I have not made a living at being you. I'm just an actress. I'm just a mom, and I'm trying to do the best I can for not only you, but for the story and for this event that we're trying to correct. I am playing your entire life in just a matter of hours. And I want you to know that I expect nothing from you except hoping that you are proud when you watch it, what we're doing. And once I told her that, once she got the sense that I wanted nothing from her other than being maybe a confidant, or she could help me along my journey as to becoming her more closely, Then all of a sudden she sat down on my couch. She asked for a glass of water, and we were able to connect on a completely different level because I released, talk about expectation. I released the expectation of whatever she thought I was hoping to get from the experience. And the whole experience was really just to serve her and to serve the truth of the piece. Yeah.
That is such an interesting thing.
Yeah, it really is.
I can't imagine. Did you have a similar experience when you played Liza Minnelli in Boy from Oz? Like, was that?
I wish I would have, Elizabeth. I didn't meet Liza, and nor did, from my understanding, did she ever come to see the show. Fred Ebb came. And as the story has it, he came to see the show. He reported back to her and said, my darling, I think this is going to be a difficult watch. You know, Peter passes, your mama passes. I don't know if it's something that you want to put yourself into a theater of 1,000 or 1,500 people watching intimate moments of your life. You know, that might be a very strange. I don't think she could have had an authentic experience, to be honest, with all of those eyes watching her. I wish she would have allowed us to maybe do, I don't know, a dress rehearsal strictly just for her or whatnot. But I don't think that ever happened. I don't think she ever saw it.
If you don't mind, I would love to go back to the way you were trained and how you got started, because I feel like now, like things have changed a lot. I think I'm seeing a lot more younger performers who come out of very good schools, like, I don't know, whether it's Carnegie Mellon or Michigan or, you know, there's many of them now.
All of them. Carnegie Mellon, Michigan,
right.
Of course, yes.
And they're really good. And I don't think that's your experience, right? Is that?
It's not. No,
it's
you're
not.
right.
So,
the amazing thing is, in this, everybody's journey is so different. I'm finding there is no carbon copy of how to get to Broadway. You know, I knew what I wanted to do real early. I am a second daughter. I looked up to my older sister and revered her in so many ways. First of all, physically, she was such a social butterfly. She's fair-skinned, turquoise eyes, big-breasted, and I was just the opposite. I was all the Italian with the olive skin and the hairy arms and what I thought was the big nose, you know, and all the things that, to me, just did not emulate the quote-unquote typical beauty, right? I was atypical growing up. But when I opened my mouth to sing, and it started at my first Holy Communion, I will remember Sister Sarah, our principal, said, we'd love for you to sing at your first communion and lead the congregation in song. And I was 7 at the time, and I said, okay. And I saw the way people's posture changed in the church, and how they immediately went to my parents and said, they called me the little Ethel Merman right off the bat. I didn't know who that was, but later to come to find out that it just was this,
oh my God,
this massive voice coming out of this little person, right? And then my parents got really interested in the local talent parade or auditions for the local Civic Light Opera. And that's how it happened. And then I started to train privately when I was 11, a voice teacher with whom I still have a mentorship, and I still look to her when I need to find a healthy voice lesson. I'll go to my voice teacher, Jill Goodsell, who's in Orange County, California still. My daughter now takes from my voice teacher, Jill Goodsell, and it's such a beautiful circle. And then from there, I was scrappy. I just said yes to everything. And I did a lot of self-discipline. I would take private voice lessons. I went to the local dance studio. And then I went to, I started out at an all-girls Catholic high school where the arts programs were very limited. But I was part of a group called the Young Americans. I don't know if you know what that is, but it dates back to the 60s. It's about 45, it's about 45, perky, youthful performers that really encapsulate what America is. And we would do these industrial shows for like Firestone Tires or insurance companies. And I loved traveling the country with them when I was 14, 15, 16 years old. And our director there said, you have a really special voice. And I am starting a school in Orange County, a performing arts school called the Orange County School of the Arts, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. And it took a little bit for my parents to go along because they wanted it to be a Catholic curriculum and very, studious. And I said yes, they said yes, and I started to go to school from 7 a.m. with choir, going all the way until about 10 p.m. at night when we were doing a musical. And it was then that my parents went, this isn't a bug. Our kid really has the head and the heart for it. She is dedicating all of her time to the arts. So I wouldn't say that I had a very well-rounded growing up, because I said no to homecoming. I said no to everything else except the arts, the arts, the arts, the arts. And then when it came to college, my parents felt very strongly about it. My voice teacher said, I think I can get you into Boston Conservatory, where she knew the dean of residence. And so I sent in a VHS tape of me singing. I never took the SATs, so that wasn't my future. They said, sadly, without that, we can't bring her in. So I signed up for a junior college, and they, alongside with my voice teacher, said, here's the curriculum that will transfer, and then you can, and I went for 5 days and said, get me the hell out. And then from them, again, the scrappy artist came out, and I just would work all of the jobs necessary to pay for my life, to pay for my rent, to pay for my lessons, because my parents would no longer pay for my life since I wasn't going to college. And that looked like anything from dinner theater to Disneyland to Universal Studios to voiceovers to you name it. And I had to do it in order to keep myself afloat. And then it took me 19 years to get to Broadway.
I feel that I know that Peter was just in Branson recently, and I know you have done, you've worked in Branson.
Yes,
so
yes.
I want to hear you two talk about Branson, because I've never been there. I'm completely fascinated by it. And I remember when we talked, when I interviewed you for the Share Show, you were telling me about your experience at Branson, and I think you were hosting like a morning show, a breakfast show. Is that what you were doing? You were doing that,
yes.
right?
So, yes, thank you for remembering. It is such a wild place. It's in the middle of the Ozarks. There's one highway to get to Branson, and you'll see bus after bus after bus. And people will go for the weekend and literally see 3 shows a day. And in between, just go to your local buffet, get, replenished, and then see another show. So I initially went out there when I was 21 with the Will Rogers Follies. We did with Troika Productions. We did 12 shows a week. Pat Boone was our Will Rogers. I was Z's favorite and understudy to Betty Blake. Some of my dearest friends still come from that experience because it was just so wild. And they're massive theaters. I mean, they can fit 25 to 3,000 people in some of these theaters, and nary a seat will be empty. And they will go and see some, it used to be the Osmonds. I think it was the second generation, like the Osmond kids. They'd see that. They'd started a breakfast show. And I did that for a while. Are you ready for this? I sprained my ankle. I fell in love with my orthopedic surgeon, who at the time was 40. I was 21. I decided to live in the Ozarks and, live with him and his 2 children. And from there, I got my own morning show, Breakfast with Steph and Ken, at the Showboat Branson Bell, where we would take out this cruise on Table Rock Lake and perform. And then it would be, on cable. And it was just a really wild chapter of my life. It almost, when I look back, I think, what the hell was that?
I took the Showboat Branson Bell.
Did you really?
Yeah, I took I was on the Showboat Branson Bell just 3 weeks ago or so, Stephanie. So I know exactly what you're talking
Peter.
about. Yeah, forgive me if you hear some background noise. I'm at the Public Theater, and there's some stuff going on. I don't know if that'll pick up on my microphone. But that said, I had a blast in Branson.
You're being very fancy.
Yes, I thank you.
You did.
I had a blast in Branson. And I did that thing 3 shows a day. I went from one show to the next. Shows on Shepherds of the Hill Expressway, and then down on the Strip. I saw the Presleys. I saw the Petersons. I saw Rick Thomas's a Mansion of Magic. I went to a 2.5-hour production of Jesus in a 2,400 seat theater that looked like a mall.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Some of it was, better than other things. There wasn't much legit theater when I was there in the sense of, musical theater productions. There was no Will Rogers Follies playing
No, we
at
were,
the moment.
again, it really just was us. It was Andy Williams was still alive and doing his show when I was there.
God rest his soul.
The Lawrence Welk Theater would have, all of the performers from when Lawrence Welk was being televised and their children and their children's children. They had the Bald Knobbers, which, they really would play the banjo and black out some of their teeth. There was Shoji Tabuchi, who was this incredible Japanese violinist, and everybody would speak to the bathrooms that were the most ornate bathrooms. But there was just music and art. Well, I don't know if you could classify it as art, but music and show every single corner. It didn't matter if you were having a breakfast at 6:30 in the morning or, driving your bus through town. You would see these sort of, I don't know, buskers like on every corner giving you music.
In the middle of
people come
the
from all
mountains. The middle,
Yes.
The nearest metropolitan area is really like 3.5 hours away, St. Louis or Kansas City. This is really its
Correct.
own sphere.
It is.
How long were you there?
Mm-hmm. Oh, gosh. Well, with Real Rogers Follies, I was there for 9 months. And then, of course, when I fell in love with my orthopedic surgeon and decided to move back, I think I was there again for another close to a year.
Wow.
And then I found out he was sleeping with the girl who sang at the mall and sleeping with one of my backup dancers and sleeping with someone else. So I packed my bags and I left the Ozarks.
Oh, that's scoundrel.
But look, there are lessons to be learned in Missouri.
I think there's a one-person show in this, Stephanie.
Would it
my
be called
God.
The Show Me State?
There you go.
The
There's
Show Me State by Stephanie J. Block.
Oh, my God.
The Show Me State
that's-
show.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
fabulous.
He was showing himself to everybody else, sadly.
But what do you think? What do you think you learned from those experiences? Like really, like, because I think like that it's total showbiz. It's like the pure school of showbiz. And I think because one of the things that I love the most about watching you perform is that there is a kind of alertness of the moment that I feel you must have picked up, because it's really tough to perform, like you were saying, like 12 shows a week, or entertaining people who are
or
maybe
5
on their
shows a day at Disneyland.
Yeah, you have to catch the attention of people who are on their way to a buffet. It's hard.
Yes, that's exact. Oh, it is hard. It is hard. There isn't a whole lot of glamour. You really have to love what you're doing to commit to, like you just said, 12 shows a week or 5 shows a day. There is looking back now, I would want to embrace all of those people, and we would define it as work ethic, right? This pride in our work ethic. And to some extent, it is still that, but it's an overwork ethic, I believe, now that we're trying to look at each other and say, is this really humane?
Yes.
Is this really a civil environment where we are exhausted and constantly being worked to the bone? I could stand on both sides of that debate podium and have quite a lot to say. But I do believe the life experience, and I do believe those that are here for longevity and the endurance of those that stick around for 3-4 decades and can speak to all these different tiers of performing, have something really special to offer. One of which I don't take anything for granted. I have done it where I've done the dinner theater, and what we get paid is pooling our tips together and coming home with $35, but still taking pride and saying, the arts, that's what's paying for my life, So now when I show up at the St. James and I have a dresser and I have someone who cares for me and I have equity who, in some regards, will protect the perimeters to which how many hours I can work and what is expected of me, and discussions that we can have where they will listen to say, I'm sorry, but this breaches what I am able to do or to offer. I really take into account, my God, I have I have created a foundation. I like to say that there are show horses and there are workhorses. And I can really point them out and say, you're a workhorse, you've been around a while. You're a workhorse, and the respect I have for you is great. And then there are those, and I'm not even saying it's of the now generation, but those that have said, oh my gosh, I went on 16 auditions and I haven't even gotten a call back. And my insides just kind of giggle because of these sort of want to go back to expectation, or I'm going to say this delicately, but it is the word that's coming to me, an entitlement that I just was not raised in. This industry has no rhyme or reason. And it really are those that keep showing up, saying yes, doing the best they can in the moment. I like to say you have to plant your seeds for your garden, but your garden may not show up for a year from now or 10 years from now, but you have to keep wanting to plant those seeds for the longevity of not just a job that you get, but a career that you're trying to nurture and foster,
That's really interesting. I wonder also, Stephanie, you talked before, you mentioned briefly your struggle with having a child. I know that personally myself. Yes. I know that experience. I now have a 30-year-old daughter, so it worked out. There was a nice ending to the story. But I wondered,
beautiful.
Yeah, thanks. The idea of all that, what you're talking about, all that, the desire, the technique, the effort, the exhaustion, and then to bring on emotional parts of your life and knit them into a performance, that's asking a lot of a human being. It seems almost superhuman to have to integrate that into a life on stage.
Yes, but here's the deal. They say you only live once. I disagree. You only die once, but you get little bits of all sorts of beautiful life to put into this one life. And for me, I just want to encourage any artist out there listening thinking it's impossible. We're in a very selfish industry. The work hours don't make any sense. We just can't do that. Look, it is very possible. You will be tired every day of your life. It's just different varying degrees of exhaustion. But for me, the depth of who I am now and what I feel I can bring to the stage as an actor had only been enhanced because I am now a mother, and the lessons that I am learning from my now 7-year-old daughter and the struggles that I had trying to bring a life into the world. And to bring it full circle, it was James Lapine. We were doing Little Miss Sunshine, and I was coming into the city at 5:30 in the morning to meet since I was a geriatric pregnancy. Can you believe that? After 35, I believe it's geriatric. After 40, I don't even know what they call it, but I was trying to get pregnant as a geriatric pregnancy. And I would go into rehearsals and he would see my Band-Aids with the cotton ball and the blood and the bruises. And he would ask me, how is it going? And, or see me on the phone where I'm crying and saying it didn't work this go around. And he was such a loving, ear. He was a loving confidant. And finally he said to me, I can't tell you what to do, but perhaps this is not the most effective way to bring a life into your sweet little person because of all of the stresses, because of all of the physicality of mounting a new show. Maybe it's not the time. I'm not saying you have to choose one or the other. I'm just saying perhaps that it's a bit imbalanced, And he was right. I had to take a breath, and Sebastian and I had to find that sort of right time and place and breath and regulation of my person to bring a new person into my body and my spirit and my mind. And when I was ready, she came, and it was incredible. And like I said, it's exhausting, but the level to which I can bring, I always like to call it the arts and humanities, right? They always go hand in hand, those two. And once you can look out into the world and see yourself and other people and find that sort of empathy for humanity, it will only elevate your art form. And I really have found that in the last 7 years, or even 8, once I became pregnant, how the depth of our living and I want to suck the marrow out of life. And when I go, I'm glad I can say that I made the choice to be a parent, because for me, for us, I should say, that was important.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say after that. I'm like bowled over.
Yeah, it's very moving to hear.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot because like the choices, as you say, are very difficult.
Yes, they are.
It's a question of difficult choices, and not just a choice about like, it's a choice that is not only difficult, but then it has repercussions for the decades to come.
For your lifetime, of course.
So
and I am certainly not, again, I'm not saying this is, you make the choice, you have a baby and happy ever after. No way. It's costly. It's, every day brings something very different that you think you're prepared and you're never prepared. You have to really look at producers and say, I wish I could be there, but I have to now put on the mom hat and be a mom. And sometimes those are welcomed. Sometimes they are not. I do feel that our theatrical ecosystem, for lack of a better word, is now more prepared on the other side of COVID to recognize the humanity in each other and to be a little more ready to meet the moment and to meet the human on the other side and say, okay, this is a bit inconvenient. However, I understand and we have put things in place. It is quote unquote getting better for all walks of life to step into a safer, more gracious working environment. And I'm grateful for that as a mom.
I mean, the mere fact that I don't recall, not that I was inside this negotiation, but I don't even recall people talking as openly about issues of childcare before. Like, this is a great recent, I mean, it's mind-blowing that it's a recent development, considering that it's not a recent issue, obviously. But at least now, it's being mentioned as something, it's not a perk. It's like, okay, it has to be built in.
That's right. And it's happening on all levels. It was actually Laura Bonatti, Kelly O'Hara, Celia Keenan-Bolger, and myself got together, and we heard that there was an initiative that we could speak to at an open forum for equity to say, look, there are a lot of volunteers that are caregivers, whether that be primary caregivers or whatnot, that they're volunteering their time and it's costing them money. And little by little, we are losing those volunteers and their point of view and perspective and voices in the room because they just can't afford it. Perhaps there is a stipend that we can offer them that would still enable them to, quote unquote, give up them time, but not cost them from their lives. And that initiative was passed. And I take great pride in just being able to voice our opinion to say, look, there are different walks of life coming in from all angles, and we need to at least honor that moment and that voice and not just placate, but really take into account what they need to make that happen and to keep them present in the room for their voice to be heard. And that was small, but at least, like you said, at least we're starting to cross these bridges that were never crossed before.
Well, it takes really fine spokespeople to make these points and get them across to the general population that speak beyond the stage to these issues. And I think you're a great example of that, Stephanie. It's been wonderful hearing you today.
I appreciate it.
We should let you rest your voice for the rest of the day because you've got a show tonight. No,
yes.
I assume
not
12.
That's
Thank you.
Yeah. But it's lovely to hear you, and we knew this would be a special podcast. So you have lived up and exceeded expectations, and so we really thank you.
As a member of the Pirate Queen fan club, I feel like every time I see you, I mention that show because I'm waiting for a revival of the Pirate. I know I am not the only one. There's a few of us, not many perhaps, but we are very passionate about that show. I love that show.
You're rabid fans. You're very loyal.
I know. We're loyal. We're waiting.
So,
well, we'll see if that ship ever sails. I'm not sure it will on Broadway, but you never know.
You never know. So in the meantime, you can see Stephanie in Into the Woods through January 8th. And after that, in the spring, she'll be at the Kennedy Center playing Norma Desmond. I Can't Wait in Sunset Boulevard.
Thank you.
So she's got a full, wonderful plate. Thank you so much for being with us today, Stephanie. Oh, my God. Elizabeth, was that not fun? Was she not? Is she not the kind of the ideal guest?
Am I gushing? I am totally gushing. Okay. No, the thing is that
we had a
all
good
of
time.
guests have been great, but there's some of them you just want to go and have a drink with.
Yes.
And that is Stephanie J. Block, I would say.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the episode. Thanks as always for listening
we
in.
have to be better at our outros because we're like just getting so like. We want to keep this going for like 3 hours, but I've read somewhere that 3-hour-long podcasts don't really track well. So, unfortunately, we have to keep it shorter.
I think that's true.
So, for now, we are on Twitter for the moment. I think we've decided to stick with it for a while and see what happens. So, watch for news of upcoming podcasts on Twitter, where I am at E. Vincentelli, and Peter is at Peter Marks Drama. So please follow us. You'll get really like news about our next podcast and all the fascinating stuff we're up to.
Yes, and the address on Substack is marksvincentelli.substack.com. So long for now.